pictorial, so you don't really need to go on another platform to consume. You can consume it on WhatsApp, on Instagram. And because of the watermark of your quote, people get to know about your quote as well. So if they want to write, they can come. And that's how we have grown to 3.2 million users in the past 3 years without really having to spend too much money.
Even I remember my first experience with YourQuote. The way the background it was just adding more beauty to what my words could express. So that resonated with a lot of friends of mine as well. And we even had a community in our college where we used to, do stuff like haiku. Like we used to write a line each, and then we used to pass it on to other friends. And there are a lot of memories that are attached with YourQuote. But keeping YourQuote aside, as a writer, you have written many books, and some of the books have been best-selling as well. Which one of the book which you've written has the story that resonates with your life, the experience that you have had?
So I think I wrote a book called Because Shit Happened, What Not to Do in a Startup, and it was published by Penguin in 2013. And funnily, the startup's name in the book is YourQuote itself. So it's the I started up a company in my college days, which was similar to YourQuote, but rather than going the pictorial way, we went text first way, and we encountered the same problem that I'm talking about, that people did not want to read a link. I mean, they didn't want to click. So it documents the story of that fictitious startup. It was called the wittyshit.com. It was not called YourQuote. But once I shut it, I booked the domain name YourQuote to start it someday later. So I think that is very close to my real life, and primarily that's the ending of the book is the narrator of the book starts the venture again in 6 months' time. It took me 4 years to actually really start the venture again. But that is a really, it's 95% real story, and the details have been fictionalized, but the story is real. So that story is
great. Most of your book titles are also quite witty. Which title do you like the most? Not Green Mango more.
I think last one, of course, Green Mango More is a book of children's stories, and intentionally, if you have grown up in the 90s or in the late 2000s, in the early 2000s, when we used to play cricket in front of our parents, we couldn't abuse and cuss at our friends, so we invented new phrases. So Green Mango More, which stands for Hara Aam Zada. This is what we used to call our friends in front of our parents without them realizing that we are cussing at our friends. So the stories are also like that. But I think sure.
Yeah, I think even in our childhood days, we used to call stupid as super talented, unique person in the district.
So clearly, we used to call stupid as smart, talented, unique person in demand. So it was rather the version of stupid. Yeah.
Great. So, during this lockdown, there are a lot of people who, have got the opportunity to spend some time with themselves to make sure they can do something productive as well while sitting at home. Yeah. What would be your message for the ones who are idle right now, but they lack ideas? So how do you help them with generating ideas to create new content, a better content than what's regular?
Sure. So YourQuote is a creator's paradise, and we have been able, our entire product is designed to flood you with new ideas. So we have a feature called Collab, and Collab allows us to give daily prompts in 14 plus languages. So these are half-line prompts, more like a fill in the blank, which you complete. Like just before this call, I gave a prompt from YourQuote Baba, who is the English handler, that I pack my memories in a suitcase, and there's a background of a suitcase with a camera on it. And now this prompt along with the wallpaper is so tempting for you to just continue and fill it. So if you are sitting at home, I think you have spent enough time with yourself. And this is the best time to actually not only make sense of what you're thinking, but also tell the world what you're thinking, and which is what we have been seeing in the past couple of months as well. A lot of our users, we have grown by 200% in the last 2 months. And so far, our entire thesis was we are catering to people who don't really have a very good social life, because they are introverted, they don't really venture out, they sit by themselves. So what TikTok is for extroverts, your quote was for introverts. And thanks for moving a lot more, but we are also thinking and contemplating about our lives and our journey so far. So it's a good time to start try becoming a writer. It's a good time to start penning down your short write-ups in terms of thoughts or poems, or even random musings will be good. YourQuote is doing a YourQuote story writing month where we are giving a lot of advice and tips on how to write a story and how to become a storyteller. So you can end up creating around 30 stories during the month, which you can later publish into a book and so on. So there are a lot of things which we are doing as a platform at YourQuote, but I think there's so many other platforms also to try out. If you're into performance, then there are so many video platforms where you can try out reciting your poetry, etc. So I think this time is really good for digital media platforms, especially the content one. And for users, certainly, especially the students who are sitting at home, best time to delve into creativity, because while you are studying, I decided that I want to really help me to try out several different things while I was in college itself. I started up a company in college, I published books in college, and it helped me figure out the industry much better, which I could not have figured out, say, full time, because I would have the headache of paying my bills, which does not exist if you are at the college. So it's a very good time to explore yourself in any creative field. So many of my friends entered the acting line or dramatics and dancing, and now they are doing it full time because they started out in college itself. So utilize this time, certainly. And that's my advice.
I think I can completely resonate with you on this, because if I started as a host in my college itself, from a third year itself, I started hosting shows, and I am continuing this profession. I am completely fully involved in this right now. So I think that's a very wonderful piece of advice that you've given to the students as well. I remember reading your profile wherein in your second year itself you've published the book, I believe, and it was a when you have started this YourQuote, you must not have thought that this would grow into this big, or maybe there was some thing going on in your head while you must have started. How did you overcome this challenge, and how did you overcome this challenge, and how was it, the entire experience of building YourQuote?
So YourQuote is my fifth product in the market. The past four products failed, and this was more or less like my last shot. Ashish, my co-founder, and I, we had built 3 products together in the past, and all 3 of them had failed, and primarily because we had no key insight into building things. So key insight is something which a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs miss. If you want to start a company, you should know about the psychology of the user. What does the user want? And all the previous products we were building were products which were in the location space, where our key insight is, barely a year old. In writing, my key insight is 13 years old. I have gone through the publishing grind, the journalist grind, and also as a freelance writer and as a person who was helping companies with content, etc. So right from how brands look at content to how a publishing house looks at content, or how a newspaper or a magazine, talking about reportage, or I'm not talking about content which is more fiction in nature or technical in nature. I'm talking about creative content. Where is the market for short stories? And the insight with which we are building YourQuote is the market for creative content has to be created. It's not already there, because the return on investment for reading a story is very emotional. It makes you feel good, or it makes you feel fulfilled. It makes you think, or it makes you more empathetic. It's very qualitative, not quantitative. Unlike reading a non-fiction book, which is about, say, Malcolm Gladwell. If you read his books, it can help you in your professional career. So how, by turning every reader into a writer. If my reader is a writer, and if they read a story, then they are learning how to write better. So there's a very clear-cut professional ROI, return on investment, for people who are reading anything. And this is the insight with which we operate YourQuote, that we we don't engage readers per se. We want to convert you into a writer right away, because the moment you turn into a writer, you're hooked onto our platform, because every content becomes relevant to you, even if it is emotional content, because you're learning how to express that emotion better. And secondly, as
Absolutely.
a writer,
you give them a meaning individually on the platform as well. They have a meaning to be on the platform.
Sure. So that's where we differ from all the other platforms which were catering to professional writers and semi-professional writers who have been already writing. I mean, look at Medium. People who are writing on Medium are professional or semi-professional writers. But very few amateurs continue writing on Medium. And that's why the number of people who are readers are much higher than number of people who are writers on Medium. Compared with YourQuote, where out of 3 million people, 2 million people write. This is stupendous. I mean, 60 common people into writer, and it's simply because of the product itself. We give so many writing prompts every day to make you a writer. I think we give more writing prompts than reading prompts, and that's how we differentiate ourselves as well. That it hammers you that you can write and you should write and you are a writer, and it's very intentionally, knowingly done, because we are psychologically feeding the self-worth in you that you are a writer, and because you are a writer, then you will read everybody else and you would want to learn from them and connect with them as well. So
absolutely, I think there have been a lot of people who have created a profession with the help of YourQuote as well. They have they've got good likes, and they've been appreciated for what they've written on YourQuote. So it has indeed given wings to a lot of people. But talking about writing and reading, when did you first start reading books, and when did you first start writing your own thoughts on a piece of paper?
So my journey goes back to my childhood. My father has been a literature lover. I mean, our house has a huge library of books, more than 300, 400 books. And when I grew up, I also created my own library of contemporary fiction, which I was interested in reading. So I've grown up reading, and what reading does to you is all these good books. I mean, they talk about stories of common people, common lives. I mean, if you read Tolstoy short stories or Chekhov's short stories, I grew up reading those. Then it's fed in the notion that these are common people. These are stories of neighbors. These are stories of parents. So I can also write those things. So I started writing when I was 11 years old in Hindi. I used to write short stories, and my father would give me a prompt every day. He was my YourQuote Baba. He would give me a topic to write, and every evening he would come back and he would correct my spellings. His intention was not to provoke my imagination or turn me into a writer, but make my spellings spot on. So he would help me with ki hoga ya choti e hoga, matlab little things which are spellings of Hindi. And then I think I got engrossed in preparation from IIT JEE, so it totally lost me in touch with writing. But I started reading a lot of biographies at that time. So I was a big sucker for reading scientist biographies, because that's how I drew inspiration. And again, all their inspiring stories had one common feature, that they were facing a lot of struggle all throughout their lives, and they finally broke through, which is the essence of storytelling, that storytelling has to have a conflict which goes on for a really long time, and in the end there is a resolution to that conflict. Think of Three Idiots. The conflict was this Amir Khan's character disappearing, and they are constantly chasing, and until the end, when they find it, then only the reader or the watcher is relieved that resolve ho gaya at the end of the day. So it taught me, I think it helped more in my entrepreneurial journey than the writing journey. But I think there's one commonality between entrepreneurship as well as writing, and that is when you go out to publish or go out to fundraise, you receive thousands of rejections. No publisher wants to publish you right away. So for my publishing, I had to face over 100, 250 odd rejections for each and every, if you total the number of rejections I received. Same for YourQuote. I mean, for getting $1 million of funding in 2017, we received at least 55 rejections. Even now, we are out to fundraise for Series A. Now, the rejections count have increased to 140 rejections so far. But you have to keep persisting, you have to keep building, you have to keep refining. So the good thing is, on the product front, we are profitable. So the pressure to fundraise quickly is gone, and we are one of the very few content platforms in India which is running profitably, because all the quite a few of them, because last year was really good for TikTok. So the entire investor sentiment in India is about funding short video platforms rather than writing platform, because they believe that short video will attract masses. Whereas we believe that with the approach of YourQuote, we can turn masses into writers. And clearly the market is going to be a huger market, but a platform like YourQuote has its own novelty in this space, and it is very defensible as a product. I mean, nobody can steal our users, because our users already have written 100, 200 posts. So now you cannot make them write those posts again on any other platform. So that's where we believe it's sure.
I've also read this somewhere that you are also planning to create a video platform for writers to read their write-ups as well. Is that true?
Not really. So we dabbled into audio and video very early on. So one of the key learnings of building an audio video platform on YourQuote was, quite simply put, audio and video adulterates the intent of the creator. About 10,000 views, you won't care about who watched it, but how many watched it. And when that intention gets flawed, then what happens is creator don't get incentivized, the connection don't get incentivized. So learn from Instagram. Instagram focused on photos for a really long time. Now the median likes that any creator gets on Instagram is very high compared to the median likes you get on YouTube, because YouTube has a very high rich and poor divide, because if you're a good creator, then you have lots of followers. If you're an average creator, nobody watches you, not even your friends. Whereas on Instagram, even if you're an average creator, your friends are there to watch. So we wanted to follow that ideology and build a really large base first, say a couple of million daily active users. And then we would diversify into video and audio again, because then we can actually offer them reach. So the best creators can get the reach from the platform. Right now, the common creators will be left stranded if we start focusing on audio and video. So that's the reason we pulled it off. So for next 2 years, we don't think we'll be going anywhere.
Okay, great. Well, I'll take the conversation to a little different angle. There are so many writers that have written a lot of books, a lot of stories, and you also must have read a lot of books. If you were given the chance to be a certain character of a certain story, which character would you like to be?
I would love to be Holden Caulfield of Catcher in the Rye. It's one of my favorite books. Yeah. I love the irreverent tone he has. He thinks everybody is phony. He thinks everybody is a fake person. And this guy is like this frustrated high school guy who is leaving his high school and going back home. And every person he meets, he's cussing them in their head. Get it? We are building something so profound and so novel. And so that's the character I love most. Yeah.
But what kind of investors do you go? Do you do background research of the investor as well when you are going to hit them?
Of course. So investors it's not that investors are bad people or good people. The point is the investors work on Indian investors especially, they're a little risk averse, and they'll work on a model which is very straightforward. What has worked in the US, they want to replicate something like that in India. So, or something which has worked in China, they want to replicate it in India. So think about Uber worked in the US, Ola got funded in India. Of course, their execution is brilliant. I mean, execution. So in our case, we don't have a comparable. In the US, there's a company called Wattpad, which is more into long form or medium. And then for short form, there's Twitter, which is again, YourQuote is in the middle. YourQuote is like Twitter marries Instagram. And it's a unique product in itself. So there's no comparable that they can map it and consider how big it will get. So it takes a leap of faith for the investors to believe in us. And that leap of faith requires a lot of risk friendliness, which does not exist in the market. So how can we mitigate that? How can we making monetization possible on the platform. And that's why our focus on revenues, that if we have 3 million users, but we are making abundant amount of money to be profitable, then it can assure them that even if I invest $3 million or $5 million in the company, tomorrow these guys will be able to make as much money. They'll be able to be profitable at scale as well, so their money won't get lost. So this is the kind of faith that we want to build amongst Indian investors. So it is a bit difficult for us to fundraise compared to any other model, which is a ripoff of what is already there in the US or in China. So that's where it differs.
Have you ever felt like seeing a competition in India? I mean, there are some other platforms as well, like Terribly Tiny Tales, which is also a platform for writers. Did you ever see any challenge from these other platforms, or was it always like a collaboration for you with them?
So TTT, founder Anuj is a very dear friend of mine. I think I've written for TTT before starting YourQuote as well. And I think their approach to building business and their mission as a company is very different from YourQuote. So TTT acts like and functions like a media company. Media company survives on telling great stories. I think they tell great stories. Their social media is a great outlet for good stories to come out. And their mission is to basically collect and broadcast great stories to the world. Our mission as a company is to make everyone write. So for us, quality is not that important. Our intention is to induct people into writing and take them on a writing so that in 3 years, 4 years, they become better writers. And when they become better writers, they can be actually picked by Terribly Tiny Tales. We are like the biggest bucket of writers from where TTT can filter out the writers to their liking.
All right, perfect.
And this is how we think about our business. It's a platform. Like Twitter won't think of any media company like BuzzFeed being its competitor just because it's news. Because Twitter is like a big chunk of bucket where so many creators revolve.
I mean, like it's like a conglomerate. Twitter is like the biggest one of all.
Right.
Fantastic. I've seen your profile. You were reading Haruki Murakami as well, I believe. I'd like to tell you that he is one of my favorite. And the moment I saw that, I felt that, okay, great. I have good taste in what I read. Which one of which book of Haruki Murakami do you like the most?
I mean, I like his style primarily, and I love his short stories. So I'll recommend you to read his short story. There's a short story called The Birthday Girl, which is one of my favorites. And amongst the book, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle is very, very intriguing. It starts with somebody losing their cat, and that can only happen in a Murakami novel. As absurd, he's like the Kafka of today, where something as absurd and Kafkaesque happens right at the beginning. And throughout the novel, you're not only worrying about what happens next, but you're also worrying about why did it happen in the first place.
I had tears in my eye when I read Norwegian Wood. I was just so blown. Norwegian Wood was one of my first books that I've read of Haruki Murakami, and I was completely blown away by the fact that somebody could write something so beautiful. Anyway, Indian writers as well have gone very far in the international market.
Works for Manu Joseph as a novelist. He's also a journalist. I don't like his work as a journalist as much, but I love his novels. He wrote a book called Illicit Happiness of Other People, The Illicit Happiness of Other People. And it's one of the funniest books ever written by an Indian author. He's very clever in use of language and in his imagination. And I would definitely recommend every user to read it, every person to read it. So it's a very well done book. Otherwise, I like the regular, I don't really read light fiction because my intent of reading is to read better writers than me so that I can learn from them. So I started reading light fiction when I was in college, but I've totally stopped it. But otherwise, Upamanyu Chatterjee, Arundhati Roy, Salman Rushdie, these are the people I really look up to. Yeah.
Great. Somebody just wrote that if I describe different writing platforms through contents of an Indian thali, then TTT would be sabji. What pad would be the pickle, but your quote is the chapati. You cannot do without chapati.
Thank you, Hina. I saw this comment as well. Yeah, really, really nicely
Okay.
put.
Yes. So I think it's time for us. Harsh, you're most welcome. You can write down your question in the comment section. I'll read it out for him, and that ways we will get the answer as well. Yeah. In the meantime, let's just give them time to ask the question. Let me ask some questions as well. As a traveler as well, you have explored a lot of things, and I think there was this one book that you wrote, Route to Roots.
I wrote it, but I couldn't publish it. Nobody wanted to publish it. But there's a funny story about it. When I took it to the publishers, they were like, either become famous and then write a travel book, because nobody in India reads a travel book, or write about book that can become famous, and which meant that write something so well, I mean, become so good at writing that it wins some awards. So in either cases, I mean, I was too young to do justice to a good book, and I was too unfamous or unpopular to become to make business sense out of that book. So yeah.
But I think people would still love it. You know, the cliche fans that you have, or the niche fans that you have, they would definitely love to read what you've written. And there is a question from this is Cassis. He asks you, how are your collabs with podcast platforms?
So we are not collaborating with any podcast platforms because we are a written platform, and it doesn't make strategic sense for us to. I mean, our writers are writing on podcast platforms, I think, and we are friends with some of the people who are running India's top platform. A friend of mine, and it's a very good platform. And
there's Anchor also.
Anchor is in the US. In India, it doesn't have a community as big. But I think Kuku FM, Pocket FM, Headphone, these are top 3 platforms. But Headphone is my personal recommendation because the people behind it are really, really good. And I think podcast is something which will take time in India. And I personally am a big fan of Audible. I consume audiobooks. I listen to books more than I read them now, because Audible makes it easy. I increase the speed to 1.5x, and 5 hours I finish a big fat book like Sapiens without really having to turn the pages. Yeah. Even though the purist in me is repulsed at the idea of listening to books, but I think it makes sense if you are too busy to sit and work. And I think our attention span as readers has always troubled us.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people have lost patience these days. You see, everybody is looking for short content, something that they can grasp in 30 seconds. So there's patience, I think, is something that we have lost over the period of time. Sure. I was reading this, but I think this quarantine is helping people to regain that, calmness and the patience that is there within us. There was a short tale that I was reading, Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart.
I love it.
Gothic writing is something that we've not seen in India. We can read more of Gothic writing.
I think one of the advice, I think there's also a question about which are the books for writers to read. So yeah. I'll club my answer for both these. How do you find good books to read? I think I posted a post on YourQuote as well about the same. So the way writers should read books is very different from how a reader reads, because a reader looks at bestsellers, reader looks at the suggestions from their friends and fellow. But as a writer, I'm not just reading for entertainment or just for insight. I'm reading to learn how to write better. And my recommendation engine are not my friends or these BuzzFeed lists of 100 books you should read before you die. My recommendation lists are reading the writers' interviews whom I admire. So when I read Salman Rushdie's book, Harun and the Sea of Stories and Midnight Children, then I just spent two to 3 days consuming all the interviews on YouTube, on internet, reading all of them, finding his influence. And then I found out that he was a big fan of Joseph Conrad and Anton Chekhov. in terms of their styles and in terms of their storytelling techniques. So I went and read Conrad and Anton Chekhov. And then I started reading the interviews of Conrad and Anton Chekhov and figured out what did they read. So that's how my reading tree becomes very strong. And I can also read these new writers and find out how their writing influenced the writer I earlier read. So it becomes, I mean, you paint a pattern that, okay, this bit of Salman Rushdie's writing is inspired from. So you get impressions and you develop that cognitive ability as a writer to identify which things work, which things don't work. So which really help. And a lot of, like when I'm reading Arundhati Roy, I can smell some bit of George Orwell in it because she is inventing new words like George Orwell did in his book 1984. So when you read through, then I call it peripheral reading. So I hate people who have a to-read list of 10 books before this month. Because if you finish one, let that book lead you to another book. And that's how you find, because I never ask anybody for book suggestions because I know their suggestion is not going to work for me. My suggestions are going to come from the writers I really like. So that's how.
One Wikipedia page to another one. Well, we have a question. What is the vision behind YourQuote Baba?
So I think YQ Baba started out, we were in the Himachal when we started YourQuote, and I mean, and the idea was Himachal is the land of yogis and babas, and we would have so many, so many visitors who would be saints coming for. I mean, they would be just coming down from mountains and asking us for some food. I mean, they were basically asking for alms. So that basically gave the idea that a selfless person who is just on the app to give writing prompts and make you write. So a truly saintly figure within the app is YourQuote Baba. The vision is very simple: to make the world right. And the true vision of YourQuote Baba is to make him dispensable. I mean, I want to see that 3 to 4 years down the line, we don't need YourQuote Baba because every writer has a YourQuote Baba avatar of themselves where they are running writing pages and giving prompts. Because and that's how the collab feature works. Every to what you have written. So the vision is to let YQ Baba attain nirvana in a couple of years and let people become YQ Baba instead.
Well, apart from that, you have also showed your interest in cooking as well. What all new items did you try in this quarantine period or this lockdown period?
So I have lived alone for the past couple of years, and only recently this year I've moved in with my parents. So 2 years come really handy because I used to cook every day because I stopped eating outside food. I stopped ordering from Swiggy. And it was a personal choice because Swiggy used a lot of plastic. And I needed to be sustainable in my living. So I started cooking myself, and every day there was something new that I tried cooking. So I'm not much of a fan of cooking new dishes as such, but I really want to do the existing dishes really well. So I love cooking sambar, for example, because it is so.
I'm a South Indian, and you just said sambar, and I'm living alone, and I know. Oh my God, sambar is something that we all crave for. I mean, it's one of the best. I don't know why it's not more popular in North.
It's probably the national dish because it's so healthy. I mean, it's like all the vegetables are there. It tastes good. You can have sambar by yourself. You don't need idli.
Quarantine period has made me chef as well, so I am pretty sure a lot of people must have also turned into chef, and especially YouTube has helped us a lot. And I think there's this one thing that is common between all the writers. It's the craving that they have with the nature. What kind of connection do you see yourself with the nature? How do you connect yourself with it, and what do you do to make it better?
Sure, I think I mean, first thing first, I've been a gardener for really nearly 3 years. So I grow my own food. I'm into farming, and I have my balcony garden where I grow potatoes, tomatoes, every little things. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the first step to do. That if you are stopping ordering food from outside, the next whatever. I mean, if you're growing your own food, that's the second best step. The third step, which I started recently, 6 months ago, was composting. I was generating a lot of wet waste. And rather than
Mm-hmm.
throwing it downstairs for the kachrawala to pick up, I started composting it in my backyard. And 3 months later, now I have a very two jar full of compost, which will last me for another 2 months. So it's very cyclical. So you start with one thing. You start with gardening. Automatically, it made sense to move to farming. Now that I have a farm ready, I need fertilizer or manure. Can I reduce my buying capability? I mean, it's also you need to be very devoted to living at your house because this
Yeah.
requires a lifestyle of an introvert. I don't venture out. I don't go out to eat. I don't really go out to meet friends either. So I'm a hardcore recluse. I'm a digital extrovert. I post a lot on social media, but otherwise I'm recluse. I mean, I don't like meeting people too much. And that has been helpful in terms of operating the way I am operating because plants need your care. You cannot live outside for 2 days because your plants will die. So every day you need to come back home at night at least so that in the morning you can water it and take care of the plants and so on. So essentially, if you're a writer, it becomes much more important for us to be very, very responsible, not just for environment, but also for the society. I'm strictly against communalism, and we have been very vocal on your code as well, that if you're doing anything which is against any religion, if you're
Mm.
saying anything bad against Hinduism or Islam or anything, we will ban your account. So these are things which we hold responsibility as a writer. A lot of platforms don't think of it in that way, but we are much more strict about it. So these are social responsibility that we
That's, I
should
think, one
embody.
responsibility that we all must have to make sure that we are not spreading hatred.
I remember when we went to Pakistan with our open mics, we organized an open mic in Islamabad. And even our investors got scared and they were like, please don't do it because there's a lot of hatred because of the two governments at war at each other, even before Pulwama happened. And then I
Mm.
think when Pulwama happened, a lot of Indian writers, especially the very nationalistic ones, were like, ban all the Pakistani users. And we were very clear that these are civilians. We are not going to take action because of a political warfare against civilians who are just coming here to write poetry about love and brotherhood. And
But I think with Pakistan we have a great connection. Amrita Pritam and Sahir Ludhianvi stories is I think something that is so famous. A love story that where people have not seen each other, but there's love
right,
between them. So I think
that
that was a
too,
great.
yeah. And I think we have grown up reading and watching. I think I was equally big fan of Shahid Afridi as much as I was of Sachin Tendulkar. I mean, I love
Yeah,
Shahid Afridi's hairstyle much more than Sachin Tendulkar's curly hair. So I think we all have our favorites from each of these countries. And
definitely. And I have been a big admirer of their music as well. They have created such wonderful music, and obviously, who can forget the great master of singing,
Nusrat
Ustad
Bhai,
Nusrat Fateh Ali. So
bilkul.
you see, there is a lot of connection. I think these are the platforms which can create open mic and give people the voice to speak. I think that can remove the gap that we have, which the political parties have created. So
Right.
very wonderful. Yeah, there's this. Where is this question? Yeah, somebody just appreciated for you for the term digital extrovert. Then there was this question: do you agree that a startup should move fast? Um, where is this question? Move fast and break things. If yes, how has your quote employed this?
So I think my co-founder has set the tone of the organization, and I think move fast and break things is an ideology which comes from Facebook. When Facebook started, they were just shipping features day, night, and center. I mean, morning, evening, and night. They were shipping features. A lot of their features would break the product. I mean, people will not be able to use it for 15 minutes, and they would revert the code. So now
Yeah.
Facebook's ideology has also changed to move fast and build scalable infrastructure. But without a thorough testing, because for us, every user's experience matters the most. So speed, above the speed, I think experience is more primary for us. Because, and I think with the kind of growth YourQuote has had, Facebook was growing crazily at the time it was growing. I mean, YourQuote is not growing that fast. So that also allows us to be a little more patient in terms of our features. And with a product, it becomes easy to release features because you don't have to make an app fully functional. You can stitch one feature on one part of it and immediately release, which becomes a little difficult on the app. You have to build the entire app all over again and make sure that nothing is failing. So that's a fundamental difference, that we are an app business more than a web business, and that's where we differ. So scalable infrastructure matter much more.
I have one small doubt. When you were talking about cursing people in your head, did it ever occur to you that you cursed me in your head while we were having this conversation? Why is this guy asking such weird questions?
Not at all. I love the questions. I think you're doing a fabulous job at, and no wonder
Thank you.
This full time, or probably you're thinking about a professional career out of comparing, because I think you're one of the best comparers I've, which is what a lot of people don't do. They just keep on asking questions. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, but I'm afraid that we have come to the end of this conversation. It was a great conversation with you. I loved every bit of it, and I'm pretty sure that the audience as well who have watched this conversation would have learned a lot of things from your words. Before bidding adieu, I would like to request you to give one advice for all the people who are going to watch this video or are watching this video. What would be your advice, be your suggestion, or your recommendation be for them?
My only advice is don't look for too much of life advice, because one advice does not fit all. And take as much risk as possible. We live in an age where alternate careers are an option. And I'll just share a small snippet how I came to building YourQuote. In my second year of college, I published my first book. That book became a bestseller. I even made some money out of it. And that was something I decided that I would want to continue writing for the rest of my life, because that gives me immense joy, and I can certainly monetize it as well. But after I came out of college, I figured that monetization was easy because that time the market read, because 3G had not come in, 4G had not come in, YouTube had not come in. So the entertainment seekers would read books to get entertained rather than consuming videos and movies and so on. So when the market crashed for reading, then suddenly full-time writing career that did not become a feasible option. And write on the side. The other way was to make writing a part of my daily life. So now I'm not a full-time writer, but I'm writing much more than before. I'm earning salary not of a writer, but a CEO of a writing company, which is paying me to write and read every day. So basically, it's a life hack. So if you want to be a dancer, if you want to be anything, start up a company which teaches other people how to dance, and in the process you will practice so much that you will become better. You'll continue to do it every day, and at the end of the day, you will not be earning your livelihood as a dancer only, but as a dancing teacher or as a dancing platform builder. And similarly for everything else, figure out that way where you can make it not just your gig but everybody's gig around you. So that's the way to hack your life. If you want to do anything, involve more people to do it along with you. That's how you create a movement, and also create a financially feasible career out of it.
Fantastic. I think that's a beautiful. I'll definitely apply it in my case as well. I'll try to make sure that I create a platform for people who love speaking and who like to engage people. Before I say goodbye to all the people, I'd like to thank the Spasmodic student organization as well, who have made this possible so that we could interact with Harsh sir. Thank you so much, Spasmodic, for the charcha that you created so that we could interact with people. And I think a big thanks to you, sir, for giving us the time, the entire energy.
to the organization which organized Plasmodic. Thank you for that. I was very curious. What does it mean? What does the word mean? I did not have the time.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. Have a great time, and send my lovely wishes to your parents as well. I am a big fan of your dad's artwork. I just saw it today. I loved it.
Thank you.
Michelle Obama, I think, sorry, Maya Angelou, and there was Jagjit Singh. I loved it.
Thank you.
Right,